So now I am going to report the Module 2. So Module 2, the history, philosophy, and objectives of imprisonment and development of prison. So these are the topics. Sing Sing Prison, Uburn Prison, Pennsylvania System, the different types of criminal punishment, personalities behind correctional institution, there are Cesar Vicaria or Cesar Marquez of Vicaria Bonesia, Cesar Lombroso, and William the Conqueror. So what is Sing Sing Prison? Sing Sing was the fifth prison constructed by New York State authorities. So, so in 1824, the New York legislature gave Elam Lentz, warden of Uburn Prison and a former United States Army captain. So Lentz spent months researching possible locations for the prison, considering Staten Island, the Bronx, and Silver Mine Farm, an area in the town of Mount Pleasant on the banks of the Hudson River. So by May, Lentz had decided to build prison on Mount Pleasant, near a small village in Westchester County named Sing Sing, whose name came from the Wappinger Native American word sink sink, which translates to stone upon stone. So in March 1825, the legislature appropriated $20,000 and 100 to purchase the 130-acre or 0.53-kilometer site, and the project received the official stamp of approval. So this is Elam Lentz, warden of Uburn State Prison, became official head of the new prison opened in 1826 until finished in construct. So on the arrival of May 14, the site was without a place to receive them all, or a wall to enclose them. Temporary barracks, a cookhouse, carpenter, and blacksmith shop were rushed to completion. So Lentz employed the Uburn system, which imposed absolute silence on the prisoners. The system was enforced by whipping and other punishments. So it was John Lucky, the prison chaplain from 1843, who held the principal keeper of Sing Sing. Elam Lentz's accountability to New York Governor William H. Seward and President of the Board of Inspectors John Edmonds to have Lentz removed. So Chaplin proceeded to create a great religious library. His purpose was to teach correct moral principles. His religious library was challenged in 1844 when John Edmonds placed Eliza Farnham in charge of the women's ward at Sing Sing. So in 1844, the New York Prison Association was inaugurated to monitor state prison administration. So Farnham overturned the strictly silent practice in prison and introduced social engagement to shift concern more toward the future instead of dwelling on the criminal past. She included novels by Charles Dickens in Chaplin Lucky's religious library, novels the Chaplin did not approve of. This was the first documented expansion of the prison library to include moral teachings from secular literature. So the prison was constructed by the convict laborers under the supervision of Elam Lentz in 1825. So over 800 cells facility in the Sing Sing prison had and more construction in the mid-19th century because the prison's populations rise. The 4-story complex was soon 6-story complex, and the prison eventually housed more than 1,600 inmates because most of the early convicted criminals traveled by boat to Sing Sing. The phrase "up the river" came to mean going to prison. So this is Alexis de Tocqueville, who was a French aristocrat, diplomatic, political scientist, political philosopher, and a historian. He is best known for Democracy in America, which he wrote after spending 10 months of 1831 and 1832 in the United States on mission France to study American prisons, then considered progressive. And he is one of the notable visitors to the prison. So the French government sent Alexis de Tocqueville and Gustave de Beaumont, the two companions, on their famous trip to America 1831 in order to observe the American prison system. So Land resigned a warden of Sing Sing in 1830 and returned to Auburn in 1838. He was asked to leave that prison a year later after the death of a prisoner who was punished severely for feigning illness. Despite the record, Sing Sing rehired Linz in 1843. So Sing Sing is a place to receive them. In 1825, the state of New York appropriated $20,000 and 100 to purchase a 130-acre site in Hudson River for what is now the Sing Sing Correctional Facility. So the Sing Sing prison was constructed by the prisoners. So to construct the 1825 cell block, the incarcerated excavated marble from a nearby marble quarry. The original building was 476 feet long, 44 feet wide, and 4 tiers high, with a capacity of 800 cells, all built of Sing Sing marble. So within a few years, the men continued to mine Sing Sing marble, which was used in construction of such notable buildings in Lyndhurst, New York University, Christchurch, the New York State Capitol and Capitol Building, and the United States Treasury Building. So two additional buildings were built at the prison by 1830, one containing a hospital and a kitchen, and the other is a chapel for 900 men. So the Auburn system. The prevailing form of punishment at Sing Sing prison followed the Auburn system, in which the incarcerated were continued to solitary cells at night and work silently in congregant labor groups during the day. So this system, which also employed the lockstep as a method of controlling and moving inmates through the prison grounds, gradually became adopted as the primary system for the prisons in the United States over competing solitary confinement system used as Eastern State Penitentiary in Philadelphia. Sing Sing Prison was also the site of the infamous death house, where 614 executions, including 8 women's, by electrocution took place between 1891 and 1963. So changing times, in the early 20th century, prison reform initiatives resulted in dramatic changes in the treatment of incarcerated, such as the abolition of this lockstep, the granting of freedom of the yard to inmates, and the introduction of baseball and other recreation. So in the first half of the 20th century, new construction projects included cell blocks, a chapel and an administration building, storehouse, mess hall, bathhouse, and barber shop. So inmates also had access to a library and classrooms. So Sing Sing also became a popular movie backdrop during 1930s and 1940s, especially for films featuring James Cagney, and was used in 1995 for remakes of Kiss of Death and Bullet. Warner Bros. Studio filmed many features here and donated funds for a prison gymnasium in 1934. So the programs is alcohol and substance abuse treatment programs, intensive structures, intensive structured substance abuse treatment, employing elements of the therapeutic community model. So general population participants progress through the early stage of recovery with the potential for continued treatment upon release. So ASAT is also available on specialized units to minimally include the special needs units, assessment and program preparation unit, regional medical units, special housing units. So additionally, ASAT complements specialized programs to minimally include transitional intensive care programs, sex offenders, sex offenders counseling and treatment program or the SOCTP, and mid-state residential veteran program offered of most facilities. So aggression replacement training or ART program. Aggression replacement training is a cognitive behavioral intervention program designed to assist individuals in improving social skills, moral reasoning, coping with coping with and reducing aggressive behaviors through the use of self-regulating exercises and mindfulness. So of the art is comprised of three coordinated interventions: anger control training, structured learning, and moral reasoning. The program is comprised of 5 modules consisting of 32 sessions. Sessions are based on 2 hours of content. So, participants will learn to understand what causes them to feel angry and act aggressively, as well as techniques to reduce anger or aggressive behavior, self-regulate to stop automatic aggression, and to build skills that help make better choices. So individuals who are assessed as having the need for art are assigned to the program by the facility program committee. Educational programs. In 1996, Catherine Volkens founded rehabilitation through the arts at Sing Sing, enabling theater professionals to provide prisoners with a curriculum of year-round theater-related workshops. So it has produced several plays at Sing Sing, open to prisoners and community guests, and has shown that the use of dramatic techniques leads to significant improvements in the cognitive behavior of the program's participants and reduction in recidivism once paroled. So the organization, Hansung League for Higher Education in Prison, provides college courses to incarcerated people to help reduce recidivism and poverty, strengthen strengthen families' communities. So in 1998, as part of the Get Tough on Crime campaign, state and federal funding for college programs inside the prison was stopped. So, so understanding the positive effects of education in the transformation and rehabilitation of incarcerated people, inmates at Sing Sing correctional facilities reach out to religious and academic volunteers to develop a college degree granting program. So the family development programs. The family develop concept is a development approach. It follows a no dull out policy, and it aims supporting poor families' capacities to solve problems on their own in order to progress towards increased autonomy, stability, and reduced poverty. So the general objective of family development programs is to alleviate poverty in the most deprived urban communities by facilitating a sustainable access of the extremely poor to health, education, family welfare, and social services. So more specifically, the aim of a family development is to bridge the gap between the poorest of the poor and the available organizations providing health, family planning, education, social and economic services in a sustainable way. So family services programs are faceted and may be provided by outside agencies contracted by the department, facility staff, and or community volunteers. So these programs are parent education programs for both male and female incarcerated individuals with attention to the same or similar programs for the non-incarcerated partner. So some programs include reading and audio tape books for the children, individual and family counseling to assist in enhancing familial relationship, including a televisit component, a nursery program for eligible incarcerated women who gave birth in prison, enabling them to maintain custody of their child in the nursery for up to a year. So this program provides daily parenting classes, daycare, crisis intervention, advocacy, child placement, assistance, and discharge assistance. So upon release, participants have case management services, general support, and assistance with referrals to agency providers in the community. So guidance and counseling services. The major aim of guidance counseling is to encourage students' academics, social, emotional, and personal development. So they also help students improve themselves in all areas and be full functioning individuals. Counselors monitor students' development and according to their needs, they give students necessary support such as helping them to understand themselves and their needs to solve their problems. So to make realistic decisions, to improve their abilities and skills, and to adjust themselves and their environment in healthy way. So while supporting him, counselors cooperate with the administrators, teachers, parents, and the other staff members of it's necessary. So working with the teachers and administrators is another service which is given by the counselors. Preparing handouts, trainings for the faculty, or contacting outside experts to get consultations and trainings, preparing handouts or trainings for the parents about parenting related topics, inviting outside experts so the training can be defined under these services. So the programs that guidance and counseling services run are as follow: orientation program, growth and development program, how to cope with bullying, how to cope with peer pressure, how can I improve my organizational skills, strategies for effective learning, transition to upper grades or divisions, career guidance, social skills program. The next is the library and law library services. So DOC's Law Libraries program provides basic resources for legal research and preparation of legal papers. Incarcerated individuals who are law clerks and have been certified through a department-sponsored legal research course provide this legal assistance services or refer individuals to free legal services organizations in the community. Other services usually available through the law library program include notary services, photocopying legal materials for a fee, typing services, and provision of legal writing supplies. Law library programs are administered at the correctional facilities by the Deputy Superintendent for Programs or the equivalent. So the daily operations of law libraries are managed by the correction officer or another staff member. So most law libraries employ incarcerated individuals as book clerks, typists, legal general clerks, paralegal assistants, or administrative clerks. So Department Directive 4483 establishes guidelines for the operation of this program. So individuals with verifiable court deadlines may obtain special access to the law library. Those not permitted to visit a facility law library programs because of their disciplinary or protective custody status of their health may receive outreach services from the law library. So legal research courses are available at larger correctional facilities. These courses are offered to provide the department with a cadre of trained incarcerated individuals who serve as law clerks and assist in maintaining the law book collections and provide free legal assistance services to their peers. So legal research certificates are issued to those who successfully pass this course. So recreational programs organize organized recreational activities include intramural team sports, competitive athletic contests with local community, volunteer teams, physical fitness programs, table and board games, and scheduled movie presentations. So activities are scheduled and coordinated by a facility recreation program leader. So the goals of the program are to promote the positive use of leisure time which encourages achievement, reduces stress, and assists in the transitional process. To offer a variety of recreation options during non-program hours that meet the needs and preferences of the incarcerated population and complement the facility routines of work, education, and treatment programs. To offer a selection of recreation activities that will encourage acceptable and productive behavior in the facility upon return to the community. To encourage the team approach as a model for progress that can be transferred to work, to other areas of school, work, and civic organizations. To build confidence and self-worth as a necessary ingredient to personal development and success. So the majority of programs are to open to everyone and waiting lists are maintained. The programs such as boxing, football, and some exercise group require prior approval of the medical staff and physical may be required. So in religious services, the religious programs and practices conducted by the different faith groups differ according to the beliefs to the group, inmate interests, amount of time and space available in the prison, competence of the religious staff, and their support of the correctional authorities. So it is uncommon for a large prison to have numerous religious services on a daily basis. For example, a typical day could include a Bible study class, Catholic Mass, Islamic Talim, Jewish faith meeting, Spanish gospel group, and a Native American sweat lodge ceremony. So, in addition to regular religious programs, some correctional facilities allow special seminars. These seminars are conducted by various faith groups, held several times a year and conducted by volunteers who visit the institution for 2 or 3 years. So the purpose of the seminars is to motivate inmates to turn to religion, which will hopefully lead them to a better crime-free life. Sex, Sex Offender Counseling and Treatment Program, or the SOCTP. So the Sex Offender Counseling and Treatment Program is a comprehensive program of counseling and treatment offered by the Department of Correction and Community Supervision by convicted sex offenders and their incarcerated individuals. The department identifies as likely to benefit from sex offender counseling and treatment based upon a study of their background. So the SOCTP is offered to those who have been identified as low, moderate, or high, and high risk to reoffend. So individuals are assigned a risk level for treatment using a comprehensive process that utilizes both actuarial tools and clinical assessment. So once a participant is placed in the program, an individualized treatment plan will be created based upon static and dynamic risk factors that will guide the individual's treatment. So within the moderate or high risk program, the duration of services delivered will vary based upon the assessed risk factors of the individual participant. So next is the temporary release program. These programs allow incarcerated individuals who are within 2 years of their earliest release date to become reintegrated back into their families and communities on a gradual basis. There are several ways to do this. So first is foreign law allows incarcerated individuals to go home to stay with their family for up to 7 days to maintain family ties, look for employment, or to seek post-release housing. Next is work release. Allows incarcerated individuals to leave facility for up to 14 hours on any day to work at a job in the community or to gain on-the-job training. Next is industrial training leave. Allows incarcerated individuals to participate in an industrial training program at designated sites. Next is educational release. Allows incarcerated individuals to attend school, vocational training, or college for up to 14 hours in a day. Next is community service leave. Allows incarcerated individuals to leave the facility during the day to do volunteer work in the community or to attend the athletic event, cultural event, or religious services not available in the facility. Leave of absence allows incarcerated individuals to visit a relative who is dying or to attend a family funeral. It may also be granted for medical treatment which is not available in department facility. So next is the trauma, addiction, mental health, and recovery, or the TAMAR. TAMAR is designed to assist incarcerated individuals who have experienced trauma and who have voluntarily request participation. So participants meet twice weekly with trained staff in closed group format with the goal of identifying and practicing self-regulation strategies designed to alleviate the signs and symptoms of experienced trauma. Next is Transitional Service Program. The Transitional Service Program is a three-phased program designed to assist in preparing individuals for return to their community. Additional activities have been developed to assist as they transition within three correctional systems. Transitional service is operated in accordance with the Transitional Service Directive number 4780. So the program is conducted primarily at the Transitional Service Center under the provision of a Transitional Service Counselor. So goals include assisting individuals throughout the stage of incarceration to fully participate in programs designed to prepare them for a successful reentry as law-abiding and productive citizens. Next is Incarcerated Veterans Program. The Incarcerated Veterans Program is designed to address the readjustment and reentry needs of veterans returning to society following a period of incarceration. So Level 1 is all correctional facilities provide Level 1 service, ensuring that veterans obtain a copy of their DD-214 military discharge papers and that appropriate referrals are made through the Veterans Administration for ongoing treatment, vocational training, educational housing, and employment when the veteran is released from his incarceration. Level 2. In addition to Level 1 service, provided the Level 1 facilities also have veterans organization or a veterans educational group that meets on a regular basis providing education, camaraderie, and support to each other. So level 3. Level 3 facilities provide the veterans residential therapeutic programs, or the VRTP. These are 6-month therapeutic programs that addresses readjustment issues with a focus on continuing substance abuse, substance abuse recovery, anger and aggression management, PTSD, and personal enhancement. So providing contact with community providers allows for meaningful referrals and contacts for reentry planning. So volunteer service program. Program services is responsible for the volunteer services program, which includes volunteer recruitment and orientation and program evaluation. It also provides information and assistance to facility staff responsible for the day-to-day management and supervision of facility volunteer activities. So the Volunteer Services program is designed to assess DOCCS needs for programs and services, which can be provided by the qualified community persons who will be trained and oriented to work in correctional environment. Following are the list of some many programs volunteers are involved in. So first is Alcohol or Narcotics Gamblers Anonymous, Alternative Violence Project, Canine Training Programs, Cultural Awareness Programs, HIV, AIDS, Hep C Education and Awareness Programs and services through the support of the Department of Health, Kairos retreats, literacy tutoring programs, music and drama presentations, parenting programs, post-secondary education services and degree programs, prison fellowship, reentry or post-release support services, residence encounter crisis retreats, student internships, theater arts, transitional services workshops, various recreational and sport events, veterans programs, visitor hospitality centers, yoga or meditation programs. Now, volunteers are also involved in religious workshops and religious education classes including Buddhist, Catholic, Protestant, Jewish, and Islamic services, Jehovah's Witness, Nation of Islam, Native American, Quakers, and the Seventh-day Adventists. So punishment in Sing Sing prison. Whippings and floggings were commonplace punishment at the Sing Sing prison, so frequently used as the cat o' nine tails, a cruel whipping contraption whose slashes were often tipped with metals or barbs. It was finally abolished by the New York State Legislature in 1848. So in addition, while names was warden, inmates were expected to refrain from making noise, which included talking. With the advent of the electric chair in 1891, Sing Sing prison became notorious for its execution. Although the electric chair was developed at neighboring Uburn, almost all executions within the state were carried out Sing Sing until 1963. So the infamous death chair was later moved to Green Haven. Sing Sing was also the site of reforms that affected the national penal system. So this system is part of the larger criminal justice system, which additionally includes police, prosecution, and courts. The punishment of Sing Sing is changed from a corporal punishment and adopted the national penal system as a basis of their punishments. So Thomas Mott Osborne, who developed his penology theories while voluntarily incarcerated for a year at Uburn. He also serves as Sing Sing warden in 1914 to 15 and 1916. He was an American prison administrator, prison reformer, industrialist, and New York State political reformer. But Thomas Mott Osborne immediate sweeping changes were assailed, and he resigned because of under political pressure. So during his tenure or time, the first psychological work with inmates began. Lewis Edward Lewis became a warden and served from 1920 to 1941, total tenure of 21 years. He also makes more reforms instituted. Lewis Edward Lewis notably improved the living conditions within the prisons and allowed inmates to participate in sports. So, Woburn State Prison, located in Woburn, New York, opened in 1816. It, it established a disciplinary and administrative system based on silence, corporal punishment, and congregate labor. In architecture and routine, Woburn became the model of prisons throughout the United States. In the early 19th century, many Americans believed that industrialization and dramatic demographic economic and political upheavals had conspired against the traditional controls of and church, church, and community. They saw crime as the product of social chaos necessary to its eradication was a structured environment in which deviance could be separated from the disorder of society and the contagion of one another. So their solution was institution for reforming offenders and ultimately restoring social stability. In 1821, Warden William Britton borrowed the concept of solitary cells from the so-called Pennsylvania system. Woburn originally used congregate cells. Britton designed a unique five-tiered cell block of two rows of single cells placed back-to-back in the center of the building. So cells measured only 3.5 feet or 1.6 meters wide, 7.5 feet or 2.3 meters long, and 7 feet or 2.1 meters high. Doors face outer walls lined with grated windows that provided indirect light and air. So a pattern of small inside cell block was adopted by the most state prisons in the United States. So this is the Woburn State Prison. So Pennsylvania system inmates did handicraft work in their cells. A hidden passageway with small openings surrounded the work area to allow inspectors and visitors to surreptitiously monitor the inmates. In 1821 to 25, Woburn briefly implemented the three-level classification system. So first is the minor offenders, labored in workshops during the day and retired to separate cells at night. Second is serious offenders, confinement and congregate work. The most hardened criminals were placed in solitary confinement without work. So after numerous suicides, instances of mental illness, and attempted escapes, the governor of New York terminated the classification system and the experimental in solitary confinement. Subsequently, all male inmates worked in congregate shops by day. Female inmates worked first committed to Woburn in 1825 were relegated to an attic and excluded from regular work and exercise. To ensure that inmates did not corrupt one another, Britain's successor, Elam Lynch, enforced a quasi-military routine of absolute silence, strict discipline, and economic productivity. In response to bells, head-shaven inmates dressed in striped clothing silently marched in lockstep formation formation to and from their cells for meals and work assignments. So letters were banned and chaplain was the only occasional visitor. Flogging and other forms of corporal punishment enforced the rules. So such regimentation was thought necessary to restrain the rebellious nature of the offenders. So next is the Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania is different from Uborn or Sing Sing. Pennsylvania's Eastern Penitentiary, 1829, was intended to keep convicts separate even as they work, in order to prevent any earthly contamination or destruction that might impede their repentance, hence the term penitentiary. So Pennsylvania is located on Cherry Hill on the outskirts of Philadelphia. Eastern represented one of the most imposing and expensive architectural achievements in the United States. So although Beaumont and Tocqueville found it incontestable that disrespect isolation secures the prisoners from all fatal contamination, so they favored the most effective Uborn plan, which seemed more likely to enable states to profit from convict labor. Next is Pennsylvania system. The penal method based on the principle that solitary confinement fosters penitence and encourages reformation. So the idea was advocated by the Philadelphia Society for alleviating the miseries of public prisons, whose most active members are Quakers. So retribution. As one of the oldest forms of the punishment, retribution has roots in the Judeo-Christian tradition of justice. In her book Criminal Law, Lisa M. Storm explained that retribution prevents crime by giving victims or society a certain sense of satisfaction that a defendant has been punished appropriately, reinforcing the belief that the criminal justice system is working effectively. Next is the Uborn system. The modern examples of retribution includes the widespread practices of improving fines as well as enforcing mandatory sentencing policies for certain offenses under the law. As an effective punishment, retribution has been criticized as being overly rigid and limited in its capacity to change societal behavior. However, it remains popular. So the Pennsylvania system is a penal method based on the solitary confinement, fosters penitence, and encourages reformation. The idea was advocated by the Philadelphia Society for alleviating the miseries of public prisons, whose not active members were Quakers. In 1829, the Eastern State Penitentiary on Cherry Hill, Philadelphia, applied the so-called separate philosophy. Prisoners were kept in solitary confinement in cells 16 feet high, nearly 12 feet long, and 7.5 feet wide. So, the different types of criminal punishment. The following are the 5 most commonly seen types of criminal punishment. So first is the incapacitation. Seeks to prevent future crime by physically moving criminals away from society. So this punishment can be traced to ancient times, Terence Smith and Hong Lu write in Punishment, a comparative historical perspective. Banishment was a common penalty in antiquity. Later, it was common for colonizing European countries to ship convicts and undesirables overseas. So second is deterrence. The goal of deterrence is to persuade citizens and possible offenders or re-offenders to conform the rules of law. Myth and law explain that four types of deterrence are generally recognized. First is specific deterrence analyzes how effective punishment is on an individual's future behavior. Second is general deterrence seeks to understand how individual punishment can deter others from committing crimes. Third is marginal deterrence seeks to reconcile how effective different types of punishment as either specific or general deterrence. Number 4. Partial deterrence refers to situations in which the threat of penalty has some deterrent value even when someone engaged in illegal behavior. For example, a criminal simply robbing a victim instead of also causing physical harm. Number 3. Retribution. As one of the oldest forms of punishment, retribution has roots in the Judeo-Christian tradition of justice. So modern examples of retribution include the widespread practices of imposing fines as well as enforcing mandatory sentencing policies for certain offenses under the law. Number 4 is rehabilitation. A common prison policy in America until the 1970s, rehabilitation focused on helping criminals and prisoners overcome the barriers that led them to committing criminal acts. Number 5. Restoration. A radical different approach to criminal punishment. The goal of restoration is for the offender to make direct amends to both the victim and the community in which the crime was committed. So during the process of restoration, victims initiate a process in which both they had the offender meet share feelings and concerns. The dialogue offers victims the opportunity to be heard and the offender to make amends and receive forgiveness. Restorative justice is often used in crimes involving youth offenders. So next is the personalities behind correctional institutions. So this is Cesar Vicaria or Cesar Marquez Vicaria Bonesia. He was born on March 15, 1738 in Milan or Italy and died on November 28, 1794. So in Crimes and Punishment was first published in 1764 with the subsequent editions following rapidly. Vicaria prepared the edition now regarded as definitive in 1766. So the work became known in France through the translation of André Morellet, 1727, and died on 1819, who freely altered the Italian text. Vicaria, for some reason, never protested against this, and then it spread throughout the Europe. So it was attacked by the conservatives everywhere and was defended by adherents of the Enlightenment. So Voltaire composed a commentary on it. In October 1766, Very and Vicaria journeyed to Paris to bask in the admiration of the philosophies there, but Vicaria quickly became despondent and fled back to Milan. So Vicaria sought in all cases to minimize or abolish the use of violence and the infliction of pain. He argued against the use of torture in the gathering of evidence, highlighting its absurdity, and against the death penalty, emphasizing its failure to deter. So overall, the book is a sustained attack on the juridical culture of the ancient regime, as well as the sketch of the principles on which it ought to be reformed so as to produce the greatest happiness shared among the greatest numbers. So this is Cesar Lombroso. Cesar Lombroso, born on November 6, 1835 in Verona, Austrian Empire, now Italy. Died on October 19, 1909. Turin, Italy. Italian criminologists, whose views, although now largely discredited, brought about a shift in criminology from a legalistic preoccupation with crime to a scientific study of criminals. So Lombroso studied at the University of Padua, Vienna, and Paris, and from 1862 to 1876 he was professor of psychiatry in the University of Pavia. In 1871, he became director of the mental asylum at Pesaro, and in 1876 he became professor of forensic medicine and hygiene at the University of Turin. So Lombroso tried to discern a possible relationship between criminal psychopathology and physical or constitutional defects. So his chief attention was the existence of hereditary or atavistic class of criminals who are in effect biological throwbacks to a more primitive stage of human evolution. So Lombroso believed that criminality was inherited and that criminals could be identified by physical defects that confirmed them as being atavistic or savage. So, for example, a thief could be identified by his expressive face, manual dexterity, and small wandering eyes. Habitual murderers, meanwhile, had cold, glassy stares, bloodshot eyes, and big hawk-like noses. And rapists had jug ears. So Lombroso did not, however, confine his views to male criminals. He co-wrote his first book to examine the causes of female crime and concluded, among other things, that female criminals were far more ruthless than male, tended to be lustful and immodest, were shorter and more wrinkled, and had darker hair and smaller skulls than normal women. So they did not, however, suffer from less baldness, said Lombroso. Women who committed crimes of passion had prominent lower jaws and were more wicked than their male counterparts, he concluded. So Lombroso believed that criminality was inherited and that criminals could be identified by physical defects that confirmed them as being atavistic or savage. So as a result, Lombroso became known as the father of modern criminology. On the first one of the first to realize that crime and criminals could be studied scientifically, Lombroso's theory of the born criminal dominated thinking about criminal behavior in the late 19th and early 20th century. So, he introduced the idea that criminality was not a matter of sin or free will, but could instead be a medical problem that needed to be examined by experts in the field. So today, neurocriminology draws on some Lombroso's theories to explore causes of criminal behavior, examining, for example, whether or not brain injuries or genetic abnormalities can lead to criminality or whether violence can be caused by clinical disorder. So, so the born criminal, it seems might mean it seems might not be such a ridiculous idea after all. So recent studies have found that there may be a genetic origin for a violent crime and that personality traits, including criminality, can be deduced from facial features. So this is William the Conqueror. William Conqueror, William the First by the name William the Conqueror or William the Bastard or William of Normandy, in French, Guillaume le Conquérant or Guillaume le Bâtard or Guillaume de Normandie. Born in 1028, Falaise, Normandy, France. Died on September 9, 1087, or in Rouen, Duke of Normandy from 1035 and King of England as William II. So question, what is William what is William the Conqueror most famous for? So before he became the King of England, William I was one of the mightiest nobles in France as the Duke of Normandy, but he is best remembered for leading the Norman conquest of England in 1066, which changed the course of English history and earned him the sobriquet William the Conqueror.